As you look at the list of Senate and House bills in California, it is that censure resolution by the House, 57, that says, resolved by the Assembly of the State of California that the Assembly supports Congress's efforts to censure President Donald Trump, calls upon President Trump to publicly apologize to all Americans for his racist and bigoted behavior, and calls upon all other state legislators to ask the same of Congress and the President. We're back with the panel. Molly, something tells me it won't happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the best piece of legislation to come out of California. I love California. It is a state that I lived in as a child. And actually, part of it is interesting. You know, one of the bright spots of 2017 has been the left at times joining the right in an embrace of federalism, this idea that states should be little laboratories of democracy where you can try out different approaches to very difficult policy problems. The issue here, though, is that federal law is actually quite clear that you can't withhold information from federal authorities that deal with immigration. That is a power that is reserved to Congress, and so we've seen some disputes about whether the Trump administration can enforce these things. Maybe Congress needs to step up, but it's an interesting path they're choosing. It
is interesting to see Governor Jerry Brown, the Federalist, right? I mean, he is pulling for all of these efforts.
Yeah, and it's I welcome, as Molly says, the left to the federalism debate, because especially during the Obama years, states' rights and the assertion of states' rights and lawsuits to that effect challenging various Obama policies were cast by Democrats and the left too often as obstructionist sabotage at best and insidious racism at worst. And now that the tables have turned at the executive level here in Washington, a lot of liberal lawmakers in liberal states have newfound respect for pushing back on federal authority. I hope that maybe they'll internalize the lesson here, which is maybe giving less power to Washington is a good thing in general, no matter who's in charge.
So, Mara, I want to ask you, obviously California is left thinking. We're going to talk about it in the 6 o'clock show, and that is this pushback on Nancy Pelosi and others
today.
who,
that was really interesting,
from the left, say don't negotiate with Donald Trump.
Yeah. She was shouted down at a press conference by immigration activists who felt she shouldn't be negotiating with him at all. Now, what's really interesting about that, I don't know what the left of the Democratic Party on immigration thinks is going to happen if she doesn't negotiate with him. Now, as a matter of fact, most people consider what she did an incredible success for her. If you talk to Republicans, they feel like she got out of there without giving up anything. So that's interesting. How much pushback will there be when DACA finally does come up for a vote from the left wing of the Democratic Party?
But not only on this issue, I mean, we talk a lot about the Republican Party splitting up and conservatives having a problem with different things. Yeah. The left has a problem of any politician who's dealing with the administration.
That's right. And the question is, will it become some kind of a litmus test that if you talk to Donald Trump, you're suddenly an enemy and you've betrayed us? I have thought up until now that the splits inside the Republican Party were deeper than the splits inside the Democratic Party. Usually minority party sticks together because all they can do, that's the only way they get any leverage at all. But, coming back to California, I agree with Molly. Probably this isn't legal to tell your law enforcement officials not to cooperate with the federal government. But the tax return bill, that's something that could have real practical effect because other states, other blue states, are looking at that too. And one thing that wasn't part of this legislation, but it's where California has the absolute biggest clout because it's such a big state. When they pass environmental regulations, the automakers have to comply because they're the biggest market.
Oh, we should have put the list that didn't get through, but and it's a little bit further out there.
Right. Well, the regulation issue is huge. They do have the ability to hurt businesses all over the country because they have such a large market. But this idea that, you have people in California who think that illegal immigrants should be able to vote, but that a person who is eligible to be president shouldn't be placed on the ballot if he doesn't hand over his private tax records. That is something that I actually am not sure. I don't know enough about the law to say, but I feel like that would really disenfranchise a lot of people's voters.
If they push for illegal immigrants being able to vote, that will cause a huge backlash. I think the tax returns is a different issue.
Point being, quickly, guys, that California is this experiment, and the left is pushing hard. Look at all the people who signed up to single payer already.
Yeah, they passed single payer through one of the houses of the legislature there with no plan to pay for it. It was going to double the state budget. They said full speed ahead. Physician-free abortions, sanctuary state, single-payer health care, high-speed rail boondoggles hampered by environmentalist I mean, it is a...
All while not paying for their own infrastructure problems.
But look what happened to single payer in Vermont, which
Yeah.
is about as left as California. It ran into a brick wall because there was no way to pay for it. It's aspirational. It's not realistic.
Well, tell them that. It's a cartoon state right now. We'll see how it ends. Just no federal bailouts for that state, please.
What did Margaret Thatcher say? It's always easy to spend somebody else's money.
Yeah, you run out of it.
Panel, thank you.